Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back into the video from Totally Not Mark, and today we're going to be checking out his first part to his review of Jujutsu Kaisen. I really enjoyed Jujutsu Kaisen, really like JJK. A lot of people weren't happy with the ending. I've still not read the added chapter. Wasn't there an extra bit that was added on to the end? I didn't mind it. But it's going to be a nice little look back throughout the series, because I did really enjoy it, and this was a big highlight of mine for last year, to actually get into the manga, get into it, catch up and read it, etc. So yeah, it's been cool to see Mark's reaction for Go, because I remember as well he did a review for the movie and he wasn't too impressed with it. So yeah, let's see how this goes.
Yuji Itadori! I'm into girls like Jennifer Lawrence! This is an honor.
You know, it occurred to me the other day that I don't know anything about Jujutsu Kaisen other than that it is super popular. I mean, if we're looking at the raw numbers, it's one of, if not the most popular anime of the modern era. However, more than its undeniable success, Jujutsu Kaisen has accomplished something no other series in the history of my channel has managed to accomplish.
What's that?
It has passed the brother test. And by passing the brother test, I mean my little brother told me, and I quote, "Yo, I just watched this new cartoon called JJK. It's pretty fire. You should watch it."
Oh.
Well, little bro, let's see if this Jujutsu Kaisen is as fire as you claim. I'm Totally Not Mark, and this is my first time ever watching Gege Akutami's runaway smash hit, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Let's get it.
So which one of the two are you right now?
This is a damn good first episode. You see, a great story, I've often said, can sometimes hold your attention from the very first scene or
I must have knocked the microphone.
Jujutsu Kaisen had me after the first line.
Oh god, I'm sorry about that. I must have knocked the microphone and it just started buzzing.
Which is a relief, because whenever I pick up a new story to cover,
So let me
I am
just
always
go
on his runaway smash hit, Jujutsu
back to what I just missed.
paragraph. Jujutsu Kaisen had me after the first line.
Okay.
Which is a relief, because whenever I pick up a new story to cover, I am always on edge as I wait to see how compelling the plot ends up being. Will it be a slow burner, or will it capture my attention immediately? And ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to report
Straight
that JJK
away.
is the latter. And I think it managed this by structuring its first episode almost identically to how one of my favorite series chose to kick things off too. Attack on Titan.
Oh,
By
okay.
beginning the story with a flash forward between Gojo and Yuji, Akutami created a question for me as a viewer to ask myself. Much the same way AOT had me asking why there was a giant outside of the walls, Jujutsu Kaisen had me audibly asking, what does he mean, which one are you now? And is this white-haired daredevil knockoff a bad guy or something?
I am so sorry, Gojo. I did not understand that with which I spoke. I won't be taking your handsome name in vain henceforth. Kisses.
While it's difficult to rival Attack on Titan with regards to its mystery and stakes established almost instantly, one thing Jujutsu Kaisen knocks out of the park involves my greatest concern when initially picking it up. Its handling of its main character, Yuji Itadori. I love him.
Yeah, he's
he
great.
is my spirit animal. He makes me happy, my heart sing, and that's what I need right now from a protagonist. Eren Yeager, I understand him, but he is not someone I want to listen to and have fun
No.
with. Heck,
Not
up
at
until
all.
now, my only exposure to the world of JJK has been through that film Zero thing it released a few years back, and while its main character Yuta was complicated and resonant with many, Yuta was a bit too much of a mopey, dark, clouded dork for me when I first watched it.
Can get
no
that.
offense, Yuta, you're a king, just not my king. That's Yuji. Yuji, you see, isn't passive or self-defeating. The plot doesn't happen to him. He isn't a victim. He happens
He's
to
part of it, yeah.
the plot itself, and boy, does he make plot happen. And while the first episode does a great job of elegantly exposing us to Yuji's strengths and weaknesses, his broader friend group, and those he will eventually meet, like Megumi, as he investigates Yuji's school for a spirit or bad oh shit. That's why it's called Jujutsu Kaisen. While all that character and world building is happening, the author, Akutami, is laying the groundwork for the series to answer a question that is at the core of any good story. Why should you care about the main character? Well, this is his answer.
You're a strong kid, so try to help others. Save the people you can, even if it's only those closest to you.
I can't say I care about this grandpa character. I can't even say I know to what extent his presence meant to someone like Yuji, but what I can say is that his parting words are a mantra that I have held near and dear to my heart since I first heard them all the way back in 2002.
With great
Power comes great responsibility.
Now, regardless of what I felt or didn't feel when Japanese Uncle Ben died, his words and the seriousness with which Yuji conducts himself to honor them has made me a fan of him. Which is auspicious because it is at this point Yuji's indirect call to action is issued by Megumi and the two main plotlines of the episode finally converge. But this sequence is a bit more delicious than that. While this is a fantastic introductory action set piece, unlike the other stories I've covered like Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece who boast incredible main characters that leap into the story because they want to or because they're forced to, Yuji Itadori jumps into action not because he wants to, nor is it because he feels forced to act. It isn't even because he lacks fear. He is scared, openly so in fact. Instead, Yuji moves because to do so is the right thing
to do. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm watching the whole series now. You got me. Okay, you got me, gay. I love you. You got me. Okay. And look, wouldn't you know it, Megumi does something morally righteous too by pushing Yuji out of harm's way. Now I have two characters I want to follow along with and cheer for. And what's more is, the animation fucking owns.
Isn't it? It's so good. The animation is spot on.
While emphasizing the scale...
Oh, which makes me wonder then, what's he going to do? Ooh, because he has done this before, hasn't he? Where he's caught up and then carries on with the manga. I'm pretty sure he's done that before.
The beast in front of him and the strengths Yuji alone uniquely possesses as someone with freakishly superhuman abilities, the animation itself serves to emphasize the very elements of this battle that speak to the parting philosophy his Uncle Ben character left him with. He's a strong kid, and so Yuji is willing to, with potential for great cost to himself, protect others. Oh,
yeah,
that is vile. Yeah. I hated seeing that. Oh, no word of a lie. That made me get sick in my mouth a bit. Oh, yeah, that worked really well, actually. Oh, wait, he's
Yeah.
Yep, he's possessed.
Oh no.
Or is he?
What's the situation? Satoru Gojo? What are you doing here?
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the GOAT, my guy, the closest thing to Son Goku in this entire story, Satoru Gojo.
He probably, yeah, like, but one of the most OP characters to be ever introduced into a shonen series. As in, like, you know, he's so much stronger than everyone else in his verse. It's unreal.
He is an absolute delight. He's like the icing on a cake. Granted, I'm not even finished season 1 while I'm writing this, but Gojo offers something to various scenes within this series that's sorely needed: levity. God level curse? He's got you. Do you have a young boy possessed by one of the most dangerous entities in this story? No problem. Easy. It's light work, apparently. He is just so fun to follow along with, and also, as I was watching him fight, I was also trying to figure out how his powers work.
Yeah.
So consider this a bold prediction. I think part of Gojo's ability, based on what I've seen so far...
There's no way he doesn't know anything about this.
...has something to do with him knowing either what the future holds for his enemy or what someone's thoughts are.
Oh, right. No, he has no clue. Okay.
In this fight, Sukuna literally asks himself if Gojo is just super fast, and he concludes, internally, that he's not. So I think that's a bit of a clue, which led me to believe that he knows the movement Sukuna is going to take before he makes them. This could be due to some future sight ability or an ability to read the thoughts of his opponents. It would explain how he's able to move so accurately while also blindfolded. At any rate, now that we're back to where the story began,
love that.
with
That's
Gojo
great.
telling Yuji he's going to be executed, I should say that up until this point, I had been enjoying JJK casually. Yuji was a righteous and plucky protagonist, Megumi was a fitting Vegeta foil for him to bounce off of, and the magic or curse system, I guess, in place offered a fun sandbox to play within and explore. However, the scavenger hunt for Sukuna's fingers and Yuji's ability to deploy him with great risk to himself as he grows more powerful made me so damn excited for what's to come.
It's intriguing, isn't it?
Long-time fans of the channel will know, I love the Kaioken from Dragon Ball and any technique that comes with risk to its user in exchange for a power boost in a tight spot. It's an incredibly effective mechanism to build tension within every encounter Yuji enjoys henceforth. Sure, Yuji is in control now. What happens when they encounter a bad guy that none of them can handle? What happens if he loses control of the monster within him. Ooh, foreshadowing! But seriously, this creative choice slaps, and the best part is that Gojo and everyone around them wouldn't have discovered Yuji's incredible abilities had it not become apparent after Yuji followed his Uncle Ben's moral guidance. This is cinema, it's basic, but it works.
It works,
It's time for Sorcery High School. There are some cool pieces of lore that get dropped here, particularly concerning Sukuna and his backstory. Gojo describes him as an imaginary god with 4 arms and 2 faces, which, okay, this is a shot in the dark again, another prediction. I want to guess that Yuji is Sukuna's second face. Yuji has already shown himself to be impossibly powerful in ways that no human should be able to manage. And
I love how he's throwing these out, and it's just like
as a total counter to Sukuna's himself. But honestly, that is a total guess, and it is based solely on what I have just shared with you. It'll be pretty funny to see how wrong I am later.
very.
Yuji's meeting with the headmaster and undergoing his test for entry is another stark reminder of why I vibe so much with this character. Millions of us ignore the devastation around us, assuming someone else will deal with it, but Yuji, well, he's got a moral compass to follow.
With great power
Comes great responsibility.
From here on out, we are leaving the safe confines of the tutorial area, for lack of a better term, and firmly entering the oh shit area. And believe me, it gets
It
that
does.
way. Okay.
My
We've
God,
got
it does,
We've
yeah.
got Yuji, Megumi, Gojo, weird headmaster toy guy. There's a lot, right? I do have some suspicions as to why Gojo requested Yuji's uniform to be customized with a red hood though. I mean, this could fit into my guess that Gojo has some sort of clairvoyance ability. Maybe at some point in the future it will be important for Yuji to hide his identity but still be easily identifiable to those who know what he wears. I don't know, that's just a
Thinking
guess for
far
me.
too
But
much
yeah,
into
whatever.
this.
It's time for the girl of the group, Nobara. Right out the gate, her introduction serves to expose her personality, wants, and desires rather than her body. You might think that's a depressingly low bar to set, but what can I say? I'm a disillusioned enjoyer of Japanese media that absolutely hates the stereotype of fan service. Thankfully though, this episode, while being presented as a dual effort between Yuji and Nobara, as outlined by Gojo, this trial is a chance for us to see if she has what it takes.
Do you think Nobara understands? Tokyo curses are on a different level than those in the countryside.
The more people there are to be creeped out by something, the more powerful and intelligent the curse becomes. First of all, creepy. Second, that's actually pretty cool. Right away, this revelation had me considering how powerful someone like Sukuna is in his final state, particularly considering how cunning and articulate he is now. Furthermore, this episode highlights
slightly
something
different
within
though, isn't
Nobara's
he?
character that I found telling. She's introduced as this rough around the edges, tough country girl type with big ambitions, but quickly that gives way to her more goofy sensibilities and, well, emotions. This facade she puts up causes her to act in ways that are not to her advantage and actively pushes people away, even though she wants the attention of. Yuji requests to search the building together, which is a good idea. She pushes him away. She tries to comfort the young kid cowering in the corner that she
Bad
just
idea.
saved, and she ends up frightening him into a position of danger. But this is where Yuji's character comes in with his unpredictability and personable nature. Smashing through the wall, disarming the cursed monster, and freeing the child in one fell swoop. Presenting the perfect opportunity for Nobara to show how level-headed she can be under timed pressure.
The technique's class.
Curiously, Megumi didn't see Nobara's counterattack coming, but Gojo did. Could this be another Future Sight prediction confirmed? I don't know. Regardless, there seems to be some sort of ongoing theme or effect Yuji seems to bring out of those he's around. You have Megumi, who tries to refrain from sentimentality with strict adherence to standard practice within the organization, and yet, on numerous occasions now he's stepped out of line and into the line of danger to save Yuji. Similarly, and this is made evident through her flashbacks in this episode, Nobara is someone who struggles with her own sense of identity but has grown to be resolute and true to herself. She describes herself as the girl of the group when she arrives, but I'm honestly kind of thrilled to say that she is very much her own interesting character with plenty of room to grow. But if I'm being totally honest, the ending of this episode and the tease for what's to come, it's by far the best part.
If only you
Buckle
knew
up,
what
everyone.
happens.
This is going to get nuts, and I know this because the episode tells me. On the gang's next mission, one of them will die.
Hello.
Let's go.
Upon entering the building, immediately the vibe is much more serious. The combination of this new veiled mechanic in addition to whatever the curse is deploying on the building suddenly creates this foreboding dread within me. It's welling up. Something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, I remember watching this and being very tense. I was like, whoa, we've had a bit of a shift in tone here. This is something else. And then this episode really just shows you what this series can do.
And I was right. One thing I've noticed and loved about Jujutsu Kaisen is that it seems to carry around this infectiously upbeat, almost irreverent attitude that spits in the face of the gloomy setting. Characters like Gojo embody this.
It helps
trait.
when
No matter
something
how
hits,
terrible
it just
things may
adds
look
to
or
it.
seem to us as viewers, those like Gojo and Yuji are never far from cracking a few jokes and lightening the mood. And that's exactly what makes this scene so tense. You see, as soon as they enter the building, terror takes hold of each and every one of them, from the most observant and sensible to the most passive and determined. More than selling us on the danger of the situation, we are reminded that despair and hopelessness are also never too far away. And what the author Akutami does with this, I could call sneaky if it wasn't so damn brilliant. As soon as they enter, Megumi realizes something wrong and they can't escape the same way they came in. I mean, that's bad, right? Well, yeah, but we're still greeted by the same upbeat and goofy visuals to undercut the revelation. Sure, this is unprecedented, but so has everything else up until now, right? Well, that's when we see our first indication that everything isn't going to be all sunshine and rainbows. When they discover the deceased body of a young man, Tadashi, the same son of the woman crying outside. Yikes. Okay, Yuji, do you want to tell a joke? Do something funny. Make this not horrifyingly sad.
This is hardly the time and place to be acting like...
Bye.
And just like that, 3 became 2. Where did she go? Is she alive? We have absolutely no time to think.
Questions.
Narumi's cute dog is dead all of a sudden. That sucks. And
Hand's gone. The severity is high
Call this
in
a
this.
slice of life.
what the fuck?
Yeah.
What
All
the fuck
of
just
a
happened?
sudden.
Our main character lost his hand, the only thing he can use to do any damage to anything with. The slow progression from safe, upbeat atmosphere to uncertainty with moments of goofiness
absolute
confusion
danger.
slipping uncontrollably into the very real danger that surrounds them. This was fantastic storytelling and pacing. Akutami seduced me into a false sense of security, and then, oh fuck, shit's getting crazy, and then, I swear, it gets even crazier. So earlier on in this video, I mentioned that this was a super fun story to follow along with without all the bells and whistles, right? But then went on to mention a specific curveball that changed the vibe of the entire story into something genuinely exciting. And this was the exact scenario I was waiting for, to exploit that ticking time bomb hidden within Yuji. While Goku's Kaioken in Dragon Ball offered drawbacks in the form of proportional recoil to its output, Sukuna is a power that actively tries to outsmart and take advantage of you if you make one misguided choice.
He'll take over you once
now
the
he'll
control of the
kill
body.
Megumi. Don't activate him and you both die. The nature and implementation of Sukuna in this story necessitates Yuji's and our awareness of so many external factors that would more traditionally be
This is when
relegated
the
to
deal's
background
made, isn't
set
it?
dressing. In a lesser story, Megumi would be an onlooker as Sukuna does battle with this curse for Yuji, but Jujutsu Kaisen isn't a lesser story. Instead, Yuji and Megumi are forced to separate against their will, and through doing so, it gives Megumi and Nobara something of value to do, save each other and escape. The intensity of this fight as Yuji wills his fractured and fading body through walls of scalding fire and rock is nothing short of exhausting but breathtaking. And to drive the despair home for all of us sitting there on our comfy sofas, these distressing visuals are coupled with the once reliably upbeat Yuji literally begging for his life, crying for a chance to stay alive. It is a stunning sequence, and after one surprising attack, Yuji gets the signal he's been waiting for, a howl. Megumi and Nobara are safe.
Still alive,
so
yeah,
I guess
good.
it's time to unleash hell.
Domain expansion.
Yo!
Malevolent
Shrine. Yes.
It's so damn cool getting to see both Yuji and Sukuna respectively engaging in their own chess battle to gain the upper hand on one another. It's a dynamic I honestly haven't seen applied in this way, and once the battle ends, something happens. Something even Sukuna never anticipated. Yuji can't regain control. At this point, I was on the edge of my seat, convinced that Yuji was far too weakened after this battle to restrain Sukuna in any capacity, and thus the tension perpetuates long after the conclusion of the fight. Why? Because the real fight of this story so far has never been Yuji and some random Kersey encounters. It's
the
always
internal
been a fight
struggle,
to contain
yeah.
that evil god trapped within him. From here, all the mechanics and expository legwork of the prior episodes come crashing in on each other. The dutiful but compassionate Megumi waits outside for Yuji to return. The veil descends. He's filled with a brief moment of hope, thinking that, yay, he won. But then, boom.
Hello.
This is just one intense scene after the next. One desperate move by Yuji in this chess game for his life. And it results in several shrewd and consequential moves from Sukuna, concluding with...
Yeah. Oh.
Checkmate. We're only 5 episodes in, guys.
I can kill this guy.
I love this.
I can kill this guy.
Because every uneven playing field, every corner that's backed into, and every impossible scenario a character has to survive isn't a bad thing. At least not in an academic sense, where these are the exact circumstances you should try to place your heroes within. Situations where they have no choice but to act under severe pressure. We want these moments as writers, and indeed viewers, because these are the moments that reveal true character. Yuji can prattle on and on about how much he wants to do the right thing, but under pressure, we saw the real him.
Yeah, he pushed the character into a corner, forced them. You see the true colours, isn't it?
He's a kid, collapsed, crying, but still, he managed to pick himself up in the heap that he was and muster an attack like nothing even he had seen before. That is true bravery. Similarly, Megumi is placed in what appears to be an unwinnable confrontation with Sukuna. Taking his friend hostage, he can't kill him, and so split-second thinking will also reveal his true character. Where are his priorities? The man who is consumed by doubt and hesitation is finally forced to declare,
It's not about whether I can do it. I have to do it.
This particular narrative approach serves Megumi particularly well. Megumi is a very cerebral type of character and a natural leader to boot. Upon entry to the compound, despite being faced with clear signs that they may have been in over their head, he didn't let on and applied sufficient guidance to venture deeper within. But as soon as he was confronted with something he didn't foresee, he crumbles. He hesitates.
Yeah, it's like,
As Sukuna
whoa.
realizes rather quickly, the nature and scope of Megumi's ability is far greater than he lets on, particularly during the moments leading up to Yuji's sacrifice. Megumi should have been capable of leveraging the darkness of the area to his advantage. He couldn't have asked for a better environment to deploy his talents. Now, it's my guess at this point that Megumi's character arc will follow his journey of self-acceptance and dealing with this sense of fairness, so to speak, balance. He has a vision of what sort of sorcerer he ought to be and thinks of the emotions he has as obstacles that get in the way of him making the right decision. During the prior encounter, when fear took hold, he doubted himself, and so, standing face to face with Sukuna...
Do you know what, right? The future reveals are going to absolutely blow Totally Not Mark's mind. I'm not going to spoil in case people are watching along or whatever, blah, 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 but you know what I mean. He's talking about these character developments and things that happen, and you don't see, when you think about it second time round, there's no way of telling how the story was actually going to progress with these characters like Megumi, and you don't see it coming at all. So I'm looking forward to checking these reviews out and seeing Mark's mind just explode as he's checking this out.
After summoning a power we've never seen him boast, he relents, and the facade blows away into the wind. What he deploys isn't power, it's compassion. The emotions he pushed away all this time became the mechanism that flipped this metaphorical chessboard, saving Yuji for a moment.
I hope you live a long life.
Okay. You know, I thought it was fun. You know, the notion of Megumi had to figure a way out to get Sukuna to regenerate Yuji's heart. That was a good idea. What happened to that? The main character died. Like, not just like, oh, I guess he died. No, he literally died. He fell in front of him. What? And now the scene switches. Like, I get it. These guys are probably super
What's happening?
to pay attention to their plan to reverse the status quo of humans and curses, blah, blah, blah. And I probably should listen to their desire to render Gojo inconsequential while somehow bringing Sukuna and Yuji into their fold. I mean, first of all, good luck with that, by the way, because they are both fucking dead now. Ooh, dramatic irony, narrative theory, blah, blah, blah. Switch the scene back to Yuji. What's happening with him? I haven't felt this stressed while watching an anime since episode 5 of Attack on Titan. Those of you who know,
Yeah.
Please God, let there be an episode 8 of Attack on Titan analog in this series too. Okay, real talk. While I know I'm being a little hysterical. I will say that roughly 95% of me was sure that Yuji was going to come back. I think it's awesome that the story allows us to very literally mourn his loss.
Yeah, but you still have that
whether it be in the
kind
morgue
of
with
thought, like,
Gojo
"Ooh, what
musing
if?"
about the conspiracy setup business with the higher ups, or whether it be with Megumi and Nobara literally mourning his absence in their own ways. But even though I was still 95% certain he was going to come back in some way, the fact that they managed to push that 5% out of my mind was still pretty cool. Oh hey, look, a panda. It's at this point we begin to get the groundwork for what will no doubt be a segment of this story I will adore. The Kyoto Sister School Exchange Event. It's a terrible name, but it sounds suspiciously like a tournament arc. And you know me, I love me some tournament arc.
Who doesn't? Every fan of Shonen wants a tournament arc. If you ever make a Shonen, you gotta have the tournament arc. And it's always gotta be within the first 3 seasons.
But what I love more are interesting concepts. And one of the best things about shows like Jujutsu Kaisen is that they aren't afraid to get weird. Episode 6 has a lot of different moving parts, but one notable element I loved was the visual representation of the battle for Yuji's body. While the story began with Yuji comfortably in charge, it's clear that Sukuna has won the war. Well, at least so far. It's difficult to fully count out Yuji because even in this confrontation, he manages to get the drop on Sukuna to his surprise, even if it wasn't enough to,
When did they make the
difference.
deal? I'm trying to
Are you gonna
remember now.
watch from there?
The advent of this pact made with Sukuna
There we go. It was
surprised me.
here.
I was already super excited with their concept and dynamic, but this pact, it's brimming with thrilling promise. Normally when it comes to dramatic irony, a narrative technique that positions the viewer or reader as having more knowledge than a central character, the effects are normally short-lived. Take Jaws as an example. The camera is often positioned alongside the shark to offer a point of view perspective. We are placed in a position where the swimmer is unaware of what's coming, all the while we are fully clued in, thus creating a sense of anticipation and tension. But this is an example of long-term dramatic irony that's central to the plot, and not in a cliche, annoying, forced misunderstanding sort of way, but in a legitimately interesting fashion with high stakes that change the dynamics of everything moving forward. Sukuna's prime objective is to live again, but he also has a strong curiosity about Megumi, one that he's willing to forego killing and hurting people in order to satiate that desire. We understand what happened while Yuji and everyone else seemingly doesn't, which, is the dramatic irony element, but we also don't know why specifically he wanted to make this pact really. So in effect, we are both in the know, reaping all the benefits of that tension and drama, while also being out of the loop at the exact same time, maintaining a mystery. Gege Akunami literally is able to have his cake and eat it too with this story. It's awesome. You see, going into Jujutsu Kaisen, I thought it was just going to be...
It's really cool knowing as well, again, going into it, the pact, it made sense. The way he worded it and the way that he...
like your average, everyday, competent action shonen for a younger
So
generation
cool.
to discover and enjoy. But it has way more going for it than my first impression suggested. We've got Gojo's motivation, which centers around a political coup within his sorcery society, hinting towards possible corruption. You of course have the upcoming tournament and all the bells and whistles with training that comes with that. We've got the villain's plot to incapacitate Gojo and recruit Yuji, and that's only the first, half a dozen episodes? It's a fantastic story with surprising depth and progression.
Interesting he's not mentioned, is it Ghetto? Oh, I'm terrible with names. The guy with the scar on his head, because he's watched the movie. So surely he would recognize him being the bad guy from that.
But who cares about all that academic bullshit when you've got Volcano Guy fighting Gojo?
Mate, this was sick.
Okay, well, I say fight. In reality, I don't think I've ever felt sorry quicker for a villain who very literally started it. And while this beatdown is a feast for the eyes beyond any comprehension, it also manages to introduce us to the concept of domains, as well as a closer look at Gojo's abilities, and honestly, it just left me with more questions. You see, as part of Gojo's training for Yuji, he made him watch terrible television, and trust me, it makes sense if you haven't seen it. But I mention this because presumably, this is miles away and Gojo teleports to Yuji, picks him up, and teleports back to the fight because he thought it would be a good chance for him to learn about domain expansion, which, first of all, by the way, it's a sick name and it's an awesome
It's
mechanic.
so cool.
But it's another one of those moves that has a bit of a consequence to its usage. But what interested me was Gojo's manipulation of his domain, Infinity. He demonstrates that he's able to manipulate the space between him and an attacker such that they never reach him. Okay, so first off, awesome. But can this explain his teleportation too? Maybe by shrinking the distance between himself and where he wants to go, he can zip and zap to and from different locations as he desires. But if that is the case, why is he using a car?
Why not?
Oh, I just got so many questions. And honestly, the more of Gojo I see, he's kind of starting to scare me.
It's weird as well because like he does explain in this fight the not being able to touch, the whole thing about not being able to touch him and not being able to get close in the fight before all this stuff. And he mentioned before in the thing, he was like, oh, it's really difficult to understand Gojo's powers when he's fighting bad guy dude when he's possessed main character. But that helps understand why he's not able to touch him in that. Yeah.
And daddy like. Or at least I would if this domain wasn't the most terrifying concept I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Now, what follows this is an introduction to a whole bunch of characters from the Kyoto school, but given that they're not relevant until much later, I'll save that for then. For now, it's time for the first substantial mini-arc I've...
It's so funny. Every time I see these characters without the voices speaking, I'm hearing the abridged voices from the Schmuck Squad's abridgment. Oh, it's so funny.
Encountered in this series. Despite encompassing 5 whole episodes, I dare say that the density of this mini-arc is on the lighter side of what I've come to expect from Jujutsu Kaisen so far, which honestly, I think, at least for the purposes of this story, is a good thing because it gives us a chance to explore the themes and messaging more thoroughly. Dramatically, this tale kicks off, as many of these stories do, with a tragic incident priming Yuji and his handler of the hour to investigate.
The accumulation of those little moments of despair in life is what makes a person an adult.
Bars. It's like he's inside my head. This is Nanami, and he is the best character. Like, unironically
He is sick.
and unwittingly,
Absolutely
this man is
sick.
spitting hard facts. And more than that, I'm a sucker for those straight-talking, matter-of-fact type characters with a heart of gold. This character makes me feel seen, and I love him for that. But honestly, for the bulk of this story, Nanami and Yuji are the least interesting elements. Right away, we're introduced to a high school student called Junpei amidst what appears to be a horrible routine occurrence for him. And right away, we're given a glimpse of what makes this story so convincing. Everything from the snarky and abusive comments the bullies shared, to the ignorant responses of the teachers, to the surprisingly authentic, edgy high school philosophy many of us eventually explore around that age. It is all so visceral, raw, and almost uncomfortable to listen to at times. Junpei, however, is the fabric that ties both Yuji and the main villain responsible for the opening murder in the theater, Mahito, together. Following the incident, Junpei confronts Mahito directly after witnessing his handiwork. But Junpei isn't angry. He wants instead to follow and befriend him. When you're bullied, when you're isolated, you find ways of shutting off, coping, and escaping the torment as best you can. In Junpei's case, it was with films and trying to intellectually reconcile why these people were so horrible to him. An intellectual exercise that festered into palpable hatred for those who show no consideration for others. This is the link that ties Mahito and Junpei together. Mahito is a curse born from that exact distilled and concentrated contempt for humanity as a whole. The character of Junpei in this story is less a vehicle to establish an arc for himself and more so a cautionary tale. One that demonstrates that those with nothing to support them are more vulnerable to the most dangerous poisons, and Mahito is the most poisonous of them all. And being the only known witness to the murder in the theater, Yuji is tasked with investigating Junpei. He's given strict orders on how to approach the situation, but instead...
Human Earthworm 3. That movie was super boring.
This whole scene is lighthearted, but I honestly think it's beautiful. It's a scene that of course leverages the hilarious training Yuji has undertaken, but something about it made this moment feel warm. Every smile Junpei shares immediately grapples with an equal amount of apprehension and confusion, like he's waiting for the moment Yuji will hurt him. Simply because that's the reaction he's grown to expect from...
It's as if it's like, this isn't right. I'm not meant to feel this. I'm meant to then have the bad. Like, where's the bad?
Being true to himself. You could play a million action scenes in front of me right now with the best animation known to man, and none of them will hit me like this scene did. It's easily my favorite from the show so far, and it's proof that despite being in harrowing circumstances, you can never discount the effect kindness can bring to the most troubled of souls. Some of the principal themes in this story concern the preservation and manipulation of innocence in the face of despair. Junpei and Yuji's respective outlooks on life are diametrically opposed, and Yuji's innate spark in humanity offers Junpei a brief but powerful chance to see his life for what it is. It doesn't need to be defined solely by torment and hatred. There is good there. But as I mentioned a moment ago, this story is a tragedy first and foremost. And unfortunately, no good deed goes unpunished in this one.
No.
Motivated to seek out the bullies he was led to believe carried out this heinous act, Junpei marches towards his school. Now draped in Mahito's protective veil,
mate.
the only one standing between him and the biggest mistake of his life is the very much alone, inexperienced Yuji.
What are you doing? Stop, Junpei!
A minor but ever-present narrative flourish that colors each scene in this encounter is that of Yuji's duty of care. As mentioned prior by Nanami, this is no place for someone so young, and Yuji is about to see why that line in the sand was drawn by Nanami in the first place, the deeper he trespasses into this story. There are a ton of moving parts in this battle to keep track of, none of which I want to discount, so let's start with Junpei. The opening sequence of this final battle contends with Yuji attempting to undo the brainwashing Mahito has infested Junpei's vulnerable mind with. The struggle for Junpei's soul offers an interesting callback, however. Mirrors Megumi's emotional outreach to Yuji when Sukuna controlled him, choosing not to attack, insult, or hurt, but to instead express empathy for Junpei's innate humanity. However, unlike Sukuna's reaction to Megumi's outreach, Mahito leverages this compassion Yuji is demonstrating to his twisted advantage.
Yeah, goddamn.
On a psychological level, this seems about as fucked up as any I've seen from this genre. Similar to Full Metal Alchemist's portrayal of Chimera, this twisted scene depicts a frozen Yuji struggling to come to terms with what he wants to do versus what he knows he must do. The hatred that went unchecked in Junpei led him into the arms of pure corruption, a monster that hardly thought of him as a pawn, and what's more is, now there's no escape. Sukuna, thought of as Yuji's escape hatch when backed up against a corner, now not only refuses to help, but in fact basks in his misery.
Yeah, he's like,
alongside
haha,
Mahito as
and
they
they're
share a
both
laugh
laughing at him,
together
yeah,
at Yuji's
goddamn.
expense. This is exactly what Nanami wanted to prevent him from being exposed to. He never saw Yuji's innocence as something standing in his way, he saw it as something to preserve as long as he could. And now, with Junpei having died on his feet begging for mercy, all that's left for Yuji is to snap.
I will kill you!
The animation throughout this series has been of a very high standard, but from this moment to the end of episode 13, they just go full sicko mode.
Yeah.
Something about the line art and the animation itself feels almost frantic, like the lines themselves are shaking with anticipation, and I can see why, because as soon as Yuji rejoins the battle, Mahito gets a little too big for his britches and crosses a line he will deeply regret. He disrespects Sukuna.
Yep.
And man, does Sukuna stand on business here. It's a split-second speed bump in the momentum of the fight, but it might as well.
It's
be
so
a mountain.
sick, though.
Everything comes to a halt. They might have shared some goodwill earlier at Yuji's expense, sharing a laugh, ha ha ha.
But not all that
now,
way.
Sukuna reminds him of the cold, hard reality that his existence will not exist if he treads again in his territory. Know your role and keep your mitts off Sukuna's soul is the message. And Mahito receives it loud and clear. It's almost as intense as what Yuji endures in terms.
Because that's amazing. Because like his whole thing is like he can manipulate the human soul and turn it into whatever he wants. But as soon as he's trying to mess with main character here, he's already involved in his territory, and it's like that's a no-go. That is a no-go, and he becomes like the one person he can't use his ability on.
Of damage and what he ultimately resorts to in order to inflict his own damage on Mahito. And bad news for Mahito right now, because my self-insert is here. Nanami is back, and immediately his guardianship is apparent. Understanding the stakes, and without options, he insists Yuji contend with the grotesque human contortions Mahito casts out as a means of dividing their attention. For the first time in the story, Yuji learns that sometimes, when all other options are exhausted, the only decent thing left to do for someone is to put them out of their misery. All the while, Nanami's fight meets an unexpected roadblock.
The big expansion.
Self-embodiment of perfection!
No.
So this is where Jujutsu Kaisen actually managed to trick me. And I mean that in the best way. You see, right as Nanami is enraptured by this sudden domain expansion, we're thrust back in time to get a greater perspective on Nanami's backstory leading up to the events of this story. Implicitly, I'm being told he's going to die, because that's when you give backstory.
That is, yeah, but...
Makes me sad. Much like the character Sherlock Holmes, Nanami is an archetype I have a particular fondness for. I love how honest and direct he is when speaking. It comes across initially as abrasive, but in reality, all he's doing is cutting through the fat to get to the point. Very quickly, it becomes clear that he cares deeply about people. So much of Yuji and Nanami's time spent together in this story deals with this constant tug of war between the two, and Nanami's insistence upon Yuji taking a backseat because of his age. But by the time this mini-arc concludes, I couldn't help but reflect on what Nanami defined an adult to truly be again. More than simple physical maturation, it's an accumulation of experience. The witnessing of misfortune, tragedy, disillusionment, and ultimately the death of innocence. But what makes Yuji and characters like him so compelling to me is their spirit in the face of this. Some might call it idiocy, others might label it as ignorance or innocence. But to me, I've always called it courage. When things are at their darkest and people are at their most unreliable, it's easy to just curl up, retreat into yourself, and curse the world around you for being the way it is. But if that's the only reasonable and mature thing to conclude when faced with no clear path forward, then what does the future even mean? Should we just give up? The world today is easily the most perilous and chaotic it's ever been in my lifetime. Is nihilism truly the only logical answer to this?
You're a strong kid, so try to help others. Save the people you can, even if it's only those closest to you. It's okay if you lose your way, and don't worry about whether they'll thank you or not. When you die, you should be surrounded by people. Don't end up like me.
To give up is to ensure that suffering continues. To not give up, to push forward in the face of unwavering terror with courage, at least preserves the possibility for hope. Yuji had no idea that Sukuna was going to step in here and secure their victory. Yuji marched forward simply because he was there and no one else could be. Someone might look at this scene and think, hey, well, Yuji got lucky and Mahito was defeated by Sukuna. But I think that's wrong. Mahito was defeated specifically because of that innocent, hopeful, and courageous quality within Yuji. A refusal to give up. And that is why I love his character. But again, this scene in more ways than one outlines the virtue of optimism, hope, and courage. It also, in many respects, represents, as much as Nanami tried to prevent it, a death of innocence. Yuji's driving force stemmed from a deep-seated desire to facilitate a good natural death for the weak. But after what he was forced to do in this arc, that one simple, bright-eyed optimism has started to give into the comfortable embrace of adulthood, of reality. It seems that the internal battle against Sukuna isn't the only force seeking to corrupt Yuji's idealistic view of the world, but in fact it is the world itself also, with all of its horrors and torments. It's a fascinating story. But overall, I love this mini-arc. It's easily the strongest and most thematically resonant segment I've covered in this story so far, but if I'm being completely honest, when I first picked up JJK, I was convinced it was just another action shonen that acted as a soft introduction for a new generation to this genre. And to be perfectly honest, there's nothing wrong with that either. But Akutami genuinely played with a ton of super interesting and at times experimental concepts that push this story to exceed my wildest expectations. Its humor feels contemporary and uninterested in playing it safe and traditional. Its narrative isn't afraid to allow its themes to tread in slightly more tragic and nuanced areas, ironically allowing this highly supernatural story to feel more human than the vast majority of shonen with much more grounded subject matters. Despite only having covered 13 episodes, the jokes that are shared, its natural dialogue, and its determination to drive home a message of altruism, hope, and courage is more than enough for me to say that so far I am thoroughly impressed. Sukuna's ambivalence is noted, but his curiosity in Megami is a mystery I'm very keen to learn more about once Yuji and he reconnect at the upcoming tournament, which I assume is going to be in the next part. If this story continues to build and improve the way it has been so far, it will be among the stories I have enjoyed the most on this channel. But if you want to see more of my coverage of the rest of this season, as well as Season 2 moving forward, be sure to like and subscribe. But until then, I've been Totally Not Mark. I'll see you next week, and thank you so much for watching.
Not their paradise. What a tune. But cool, some interesting points brought up there that, you know, I like the analytical approach. It's very easy to look at stuff, because, like, when he breaks into the domain, it's kind of like, yeah, he's done it because of Sukuna, and that's when I thought as well. But it's like, there is the message there as well, I suppose, if you look quite deep into it. It's like, just never give up. Keep going. You gotta fight. Otherwise, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose others if you don't fight for them. Yeah, I like that he's enjoying it. But again, confused about how he didn't mention he understood Gojo's powers later on, after he actually explained it to him. He didn't point out that he explained it to him. And what was the other thing? Yeah, 2, not mentioning the fact that one of the bad guys was Gojo's friend, or you know, he was the bad guy in the movie that he's already checked out and reviewed. But other than that, really good video. I really enjoyed it. We'll be checking them out as he's putting them out, and thank you for watching.